What's up, comic book fans? And welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me. And today, we got more From the Ashes. This time, with Phoenix, issue number 1. And when we last left off with the Phoenix, she had helped take down the Enigma Dominion at the end of the Krakoan era of X-Men. And if you guys need to get caught up with how we got here, I'll put up a link at the top of the screen and a card at the end of the video to the Fall of the House of X playlist. But now, since the Krakoan age has ended, an all-new reboot of the X-Men is taking place, and the Phoenix gets a chance to show what she's been up to now from the ashes. So if you guys are ready to find out what new adventures await the Phoenix as she now takes out into the cosmos to be a hero for the universe, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So we begin this series on a distant planet with a young girl named Adani, who is the daughter of a priest, formerly of the Universal Church of Truth, that had since left the church after discovering their truth to be a dangerous contradiction. She had been taught by her father that the universe is protected by one omnipotent God, and to pray and offer thanks even for her misfortunes. But the Universal Church of Truth had conquered entire populations, offering anyone they encountered either salvation or death. Now, Adani's father, of course, disagreed with these practices, but this little story told through her perspective is not meant to paint her father as a hero, she says. He might not have helped them conquer worlds, but he was still driven by fear. But Adani has always tried to have empathy for her father, considering the things that he has seen and the tortures that he'd experienced. But after the passing of her mother, her father's fears had only gotten worse, manifesting hatred for anything that he couldn't explain. And the thing that he hated most of all was the Phoenix. And before their first meeting, she had never even heard of Jean Grey or the X-Men. No knowledge of the crash landing that resulted in the rebirth of Jean Grey, forever bonded to the Phoenix Force, or the impossible redemption quest that Jean Grey had devoted herself to. All she knew were the stories told to her by her father of a murderer who would destroy worlds and consume suns for sustenance, killing entire species and planets in the process. The Phoenix, in her eyes, was the living embodiment of fear itself. But as she recalls this story years later, she thinks that her first Phoenix encounter was a pivotal turning point in her life, and that meeting would alter the course of Adani's existence permanently. As we can see in this past moment that the Phoenix had arrived on their planet, and her father's initial reaction was that the Phoenix was here to destroy them all like so many before. But Jean Grey speaks up and assures Adani's father that she's not here to harm them. She's here because their son is dying, and it'll take their people with it. But she will not let that happen. And then Adani details that in the time that she'd later spend with Jean Grey, she would consider herself lucky that Jean shared her story with Adani. Even the story of her powers kickstarting and causing the death of a friend when Jean was only a child. A death that would haunt Jean and help forge her connection with the Phoenix Force. Just like Adani, one moment in Jean's life determined the course of her existence, altering the path of her and everyone in her life. And it wasn't really until later on that Adani understood that it was not because of these experiences, but in spite of them, that Jean was able to build a connection to the universe. A connection born from fire and ash, which is where Adani details is where this story truly begins. As we're then taken to an intergalactic black hole prison, as the black hole is starting to collapse. And then we pick up with Richard Rider Nova, as he's being told that he should evacuate instead of going down with these prisoners. But Rider refuses to let these prisoners all die here. And as the facility starts to take damage, one of the prison cells ends up opening, freeing Morg, a former Galactus herald who has his sights squared clearly on Nova. And battle ensues, but it doesn't take very long before Nova manages to gain the upper hand. But he's really kind of short on time right now, and he admits that he could certainly use some backup at this moment. And then we pick back up with Jean Grey as she's floating out in the cosmos having a psychic conversation with Scott Summers, who's back on Earth at his new former Sentinel factory base in Alaska. And in their conversation, Jean details how the people on the world that she saved were all afraid of her. But Scott assures her that they were only afraid of the Phoenix, not Jean Grey. But Jean quickly reminds Scott that they are one and the same. Although he still tries to comfort her, that people really only know what the stories tell, which Jean does understand, but still, she wasn't really prepared for how she'd feel trying to save a planet of people that were more afraid of her than the sun that was about to explode. And hearing that, Scott's like, wait, did you stop a sun from exploding? You're amazing. But then he mentions how much he loves sharing her mind, but he does miss having her around and wonders how long she'll be gone. But she really doesn't have an answer for how long she'll be out there, but she just knows that she needs to be there, which Scott does understand and respects. And then as she begins to compliment the job he's done with the ship and making it feel more like home for her, she begins to get some massive psychic feedback that even Scott is able to pick up on. And then he asks what that noise was. And she responds that it was a psychic distress call, and she's gonna have to cut this conversation short, and then she takes off. And then we pick back up with the black hole prison, with another prisoner that's losing his cool right now, thinking that they're all about to die, and he didn't even have a death sentence. He doesn't want to die right now, and he prays out to his God to save him. But then he's kicked in the head as he grovels by his cellmate Pericus, the god of unlimited power and infinite energy, who once fought against Thor and managed to break Mjolnir before Thor ended up cutting off his arm. And Pericus tells his cellmate that he doesn't need a god, at least not the one he's calling out to. And then Pericus uses his power and frees them from their cell. And then he snaps the neck of this cellmate, then pimps off like a boss. And then we pick back up with Nova and his fight with Morg, as now Morg has gained the upper hand. And now that Nova is down and buried underneath some rubble, Morg finds the spear and goes for the killing blow on Nova. But just as he goes to take a swing, the spear is snatched out of his hands as Jean Grey is revealed, and she comes in and takes out Morg quick, fast, and in a hurry. And then reveals that she'd got Nova's message, which came through super loud, to which Nova apologizes for. He's still getting used to using psychic alarms. But he then offers to catch Jean up on what's going on. But of course, Jean Grey is a super psychic, so she already knows. So he just adds in that the last blast broke open some of the cells and the Omega Core guards are trying to round up all of the escapees. But he's got no idea how a transport is possible now. But Jean assures him that a transport is definitely not possible now. But she'll just stabilize the black hole so no one has to die. And now Nova's like, wait, you're just gonna stabilize it? But that's nothing for Jean, who just absorbed a dying sun. So how much harder can it be to stabilize a black hole, she asks casually, and then tells the writer to just focus on keeping everyone safe. And then we pick up with someone trying to make use of one of the escape ships, but then is met by Pericus, who decides to take this ship for himself instead, and then he escapes this prison, as Adani then comes back in to narrate that Jean's abilities were tested that day. No human could do what Jean did. Jean became the black hole, and she gave every part of herself to the stars, feeling the cosmos as it moved around her until it eventually joined her in dance. But then Jean receives a psychic message from Nova that a prisoner had escaped, and Jean notices the ship, which Nova notifies her that it's Pericus, the dark god who once defeated Thor. And Jean is familiar with Pericus, so she decides to fly after him to stop him, but is then hit with a surge of energy from the prison that is about to explode and kill everyone. So Adani notes that in that moment, Jean made the only decision that she thought she could make. And Pericus escaped into the cosmos, so that the prison and hundreds of lives would be spared. And Adani also notes that Jean's humanity made that decision, and she chose like a mortal instead of a god, and she could not conceive the consequences. As we then see Parakis's escape pod crash land on Adani's planet, and against the wishes of her people, Adani is the first to explore the crash landing. As Parakis then emerges from the ship and asks Adani if she can understand his language, which she does. But then Adani's father yells out for her to get back and for Parakis to get away from her. "Who are you and what business do you have with us?" he asks, while wielding a knife in Parakis's direction. And then Parakis asks if they are of the Universal Church of Truth, to which Adani's father assures him that they are not, which puts a devilish grin on Parakis's face, who tells the man that he was sent here in answer to their prayers, to free them from what they fear most. And then Parakis puts his hand on the shoulder of Adani's father and tells him that he knows what he fears, and it sits like a weight on the man's heart. So Parakis then snatches the blade from Adani's father and then tells him to be free, before he then uses that blade to stab her father right in front of her. And then she continues her narration that Parakis brought death to her home. But it wasn't until much later that she would learn that Jean Grey pointed the way. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the issue. But just like in issue 1 of X-Men From the Ashes, we're given another QR code with an additional bonus scene of a now fully grown Adani after a time jump, as she continues her narration that the most important question of all is not whether or not Jean Grey will find peace, but whether or not she deserves it, as Adani now looks the part of a stone-cold killer with a massive beef towards Jean Grey. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we might have a banger on our hands. But what did you guys think about this issue? And how did you feel about the setup of this new antagonist for the Phoenix? I'm kind of reluctant to call her a villain right now, at least since we haven't really seen her do anything. But it does feel like she's about to be a whole problem out here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more. I really like how they took the time to set up her story as the series kicks off, and I'm sure many people have questioned how a Phoenix series could be interesting. But how are you guys feeling so far about the setup of From the Ashes with only 2 issues released to this point? You guys know I love to hear all your thoughts and theories. And of course, I want to hear how you think that this series is going to play out. And as always, if you guys enjoyed this video and this channel, and you'd like to support the channel, then you can do so by stopping by the Comics Icon store and picking you up some of this Comics Icons merchandise, including the background music heard right here in this video available for download. Or by joining the Iconic Fan Club channel membership, and there'll be a link in the description to join. But with your membership, your voice will be heard during our interactive live streams with yours truly, where we can talk about everything that's been going down in these issues, as well as ones that you'd like for me to go over in the future and other comic news. Plus, we've got tiers to the memberships as well, beginning at just 99 cents. Or you guys can donate to the channel with a super thanks. And if you're not able to do any of those, then you can still be a tremendous help to the future of this channel by dropping a like, share, and subscribe in the Comics Icons for more icons in the comic book world. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. I'm out.